The kidney doesn't care if you call it sick, but the mind does. If you tell a person she has a mental disorder, you create a mental disorder, not only in the patient, but also in those who love her.
Gonna go everywhere and be myself, I swear. I'm gonna give my all, 'cause I don't care if people will stop and stare.
Hi, welcome to my channel. This channel is going to be mostly about different medical topics, particularly ADHD, as I'm going along with my own mental health journey, but also some daily vlogs as well. To start off, ADHD, also known as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is a neurodevelopmental disorder that often presents with inattention, hyperactivity, and/or impulsivity. It's usually diagnosed in childhood and often continues into adulthood, but we've seen an increase recently of adult patients who previously have had coping mechanisms and now they're not diagnosed until their adulthood. So I thought it'd be pretty fun if we were able to do some of those screening tools that they have for adults, given that I was only diagnosed at 28 years old, which was last year for me. The particular one that we're going to do today is the adult ADHD rating scale 4. It's an 18-item scale based on the DSM-IV, which has since been updated to the DSM-V, but it provides symptoms of ADHD and it provides a rating for the severity of those symptoms. For the first 9 questions, they are mainly the inattentive symptoms that you will be more likely to notice, and then for the second 9 questions, you have more of the hyperactivity and impulsivity symptoms. So let's start. Carelessness. So each item has prompts that are trying to help the patient answer the question and give a severity of how often they have the symptoms. This could be none, mild, moderate, or severe. So for carelessness, the prompts that are included with it are make a lot of mistakes, careless, rush through or don't check your work, messy or sloppy, difficulty finding things. So to kind of give a little bit of background perspective, even as a kid, I was always considered the messy child compared to my siblings. And my mom couldn't really figure out why I lived by this notion of organized chaos. And it worked for me, it just didn't work for everyone else around me. But living in organized chaos would often make me end up losing things a lot. So I wouldn't be able to find my schoolwork, and it was difficult in the sense that I was a gifted kid. So I had a bunch of academically gifted courses that I was supposed to take, and we had separate homework from the regular classes, and I would do the homework, but then I would forget where I placed it at, or I'd leave it at home and I couldn't find it when I went back. So then that ended up getting me in trouble. Making a lot of mistakes. I think I tried to avoid making mistakes to the point where whenever I did test, I was always the last person to leave because I would continuously recheck things because I was so afraid to make mistakes. Difficulty sustaining attention in activities. So for this one, we have trouble paying attention or staying focused on boring or repetitive tasks. Is it longer to complete certain tasks? Is it harder for you than others you know? And do you have trouble remembering what you read or have to reread the same passages several times? So, yes, I do have issues paying attention to things for significant periods of time. This was difficult for me as not only a child having to sit through class, especially since I was in a lot of the gifted classes, but it just continued to progress through undergrad and med school and even residency right now, where we're having to do lectures, and it's difficult with me trying to sustain that attention where I'm not only giving the speaker my full attention, but I'm actually comprehending what they're saying. So that was difficult, and that was one of the reasons why I reached out to my psychiatrist and asked to be evaluated for ADHD. Does it take longer to complete tasks? Yes, in the sense that I procrastinate to the last minute because I need that anxiety fire under my butt before I'm gonna get something done. So in that sense, yes, it does take longer. Even like I mentioned, doing the test, I'm always going to be the last person because I'm trying not to make any extra mistakes from that standpoint. The really big thing is trouble remembering what you read or rereading the same thing, and not so much in like things that I'm enjoying and that I choose to read, but more so in like textbooks and things. I would definitely have to reread certain passages to make sure that I was remembering them. And so to avoid having to do that, I would wait until the day before that reading was due, so that that anxiety would just help me be able to sustain that attention and remember a lot better. Doesn't listen. So, doesn't listen or respond, such as daydream. Do others often have to repeat themselves? Do you miss key parts of conversations due to drifting off? And does this cause problems? I would like to say that I am a person that is a very good listener, but when people are supposed to be giving advice to me, I don't always take it. Whether or not that's because I've like blanked out on what they said, not really sure. But if it's something that they're like bearing their heart out to me, then yes, I'm going to be a very good listener. You're not going to have to repeat yourself for anything. Do I miss key parts of conversations? If it's an important conversation, which, you know, we all like to say that most of them are, but if it is an important conversation, then no, I don't miss and I don't feel like I miss the key portions of it. But there's always that underlying, well, your lectures are important as well, and you miss certain things of them. So yes and no to that one. No follow through. Do you have trouble finishing things? Do you leave things half done and start a new project? Do you need consequences such as deadlines to finish? Do you have trouble following instructions, and do you need to write down instructions? So, yes, I have, since as far back as I can remember, always had a new hobby to do. Even as a kid, it went from piano lessons to photography to acting to sewing to crocheting to woodworking. I think that the saying, a jack of all trades but a master of none, is very, very, very true. And half of the times I would start on a project and then not finish it. The most recent one that I can think of was probably med school, where I was getting back into sewing and I decided to make my niece and nephew duffel bags. And I completely finished my niece's duffel bag, and I'll insert a picture if I can find it, and cut all the pieces for my nephews, and it still has all the pieces cut, and I have not tackled it yet. So definitely really bad about leaving things half done. Definitely need consequences, deadlines to finish something. Like I mentioned, any test that I took, I did not start studying until the day before, and it just always worked for me at that time, where I was able to remember better and do well on them. But in residency, you don't really have those tests that are on a certain subject. It's more so your board certification, where you're learning as you go, and so you have to study every single day. And I definitely knew after my first in training exam, which are exams that we take that are supposed to be similar to the boards that we take after we graduate residency, I knew that there was something wrong and I needed to address it. And so it's part of the reason why I ended up also being evaluated for ADHD. Trouble following instructions. I am someone that has to have the instructions right in front of me. I need pictures and words. If you tell me something to do, it is not happening. I need to physically be able to see it and write on it for anything to occur with it. Can't organize. So for this one, do you have a hard time prioritizing? Do you need others to plan for you? Do you have trouble with time management, and does this cause problems? Do you have difficulty in planning? Does difficulty in planning lead to procrastination and putting off tasks until the last minute possible? Yes, I do. Yes and no to certain of them. I hate when others plan for me, because I'm never going to remember what someone else has done for me. But I also have a hard time planning. No, I'll take that back. So I am very, very good at planning things. I am terrible at putting that into action, if that makes sense. So I will make the nicest schedule, and it'll be in the sense that, oh, this is going to be great, but I've spent so much time making the schedule and it doesn't ever end up implemented. So terrible from that standpoint. Do I have a hard time with time management? Give me any ADHD person that doesn't have a hard time with time management, and I will give you $1 million, which I don't have $1 million to give you. I am terrible with it, and it doesn't matter if it is something as simple as turning something in on time. It's not going to happen. I will be that person that will remember 5 minutes after, and you get it turned in 5 minutes after. And luckily, I became friends with most of my professors, so I didn't get points taken off of it. But in undergrad and med school, that's definitely something that if they wanted to take points off, they technically could have. I usually will try to plan my day out that whenever I do go somewhere, I try to avoid the traffic. So I end up waiting to the last minute to leave to avoid that traffic. And then I end up getting to that appointment or that meeting a lot later than I was supposed to. And it's definitely gotten me in trouble a few times, but haven't been fired yet, so that's at least one thing. And does the difficulty in planning lead to procrastination? Yes. I think I've mentioned that I procrastinate a lot already, so yes, it does. Avoids disliked tasks requiring sustained mental effort. Do you avoid tasks challenging or lengthy because it's hard to stay focused? Do you force yourself to do tasks? Is it hard? How hard is it? And do you procrastinate? Yes, I procrastinate very, very much so. Do I avoid tasks that are challenging or lengthy because it's hard to stay focused? It depends. If it was something like studying for a test, yes, I would wait to the last minute to do it. If even doing research papers, and I was a chemistry minor, so we had to do reports on lab reports on the different projects that we would complete, and I would wait until the day before to do any of those because it would be difficult for me to write 25 pages over a period of time, but I could easily write that 25 pages the day before because I know that it had to be due. Other than that, it's really weird because when it comes to my hobbies, it doesn't matter how challenging they are, I still would like to become that Jack or Jane of all trades. So I keep making myself do it despite the fact that it is a very challenging task. I think the most challenging one thus far has probably been the woodworking because there are so many different intricate details that are accompanied with it. So yes, it gets hard at times, but we figure out a way to make through it, and if you can't make through it by yourself, there's always medication for it. Loses important items. Do you lose important items? Does it happen a lot, more than others? Are you constantly looking? Do you get into trouble? Do you put items in the same place each time? Otherwise, you will lose them. So I think the most recent scenario has been I will lose my glasses whenever they are not attached to my face. So I end up putting them on my bed. I have like a storage bed that I made, and on the hutch part of it, I will place my glasses in the exact same spot every single night, so that when I wake up in the morning, it's the first thing that I put on myself. My glasses have to go on. Otherwise, if my glasses aren't in that exact spot, I will reach over to it, forget that they are not there, and then completely forget that I haven't put them on, and end up almost going out the door or out the door to my car and realizing that I can't see anything. And I'm not the type of person that should drive anywhere, not even down the street, without wearing glasses. So definitely have to put things in the same place each time. I lose everything, my keys, my wallets, important papers that I'm supposed to remember. I think one of the earliest times I lost something was probably second grade, where we would have to turn in homework every single day that week in order to go to the pizza and movie party. And I had remembered to turn in my homework every single day except that Friday. And it was devastating for me as a second grader because I felt as though I was being labeled as an irresponsible person, and because I was that kid that was gifted, it was like, oh, this is so much better than you. You can definitely do better than this. Like, what happened? So it's like you're being put down because of something that you can't necessarily control. And I still don't know where that homework ended up because it definitely wasn't at my house. But yeah, I've gotten into trouble for it in the past, but second grade's probably the one that wounded me the most because everyone wants to be with their friends at the cool pizza party, and I didn't get to have that. Easily distractible. Are you distracted by events around you, such as noise, movement, clutter? Do you require relative isolation to get work done? Does anything get your mind off of what you're doing, and is it hard to get back to task once stopped? Let's see. I want to say that I'm really sensitive to sounds and smells to the point where I thought I had a sensory processing disorder, and I potentially could still have a sensory processing disorder, but it will get overwhelming to the fact that it doesn't matter if I am in the middle of writing notes for clinic or for an admission. If something catches my attention, I can't focus. It will literally take my focus away, and I can't drown it out until I find out where it's coming from. And I don't care who's around me, I will distract them to ask them if they also notice it. But yeah, I definitely do get distracted by things going on, but it's only with the sounds and the smells. I don't think I need relative isolation to get work done. People probably want relative isolation from me because once I get my work done, I'm going to talk and distract everyone else from getting any work done. But otherwise, it's usually pretty calm. Is it hard to get back to task once stopped? Yes, very much so. Forgetful in daily activities. Do you forget things in daily routines? Do you forget to bring things to work or assignments? Do you write regular reminders? So, like I mentioned, I am excellent at planning things and writing things down and when they're due, and then I will never open that planner back up to actually implement it into my life. So forgetting things on a daily basis is probably very, very common for me. One of the main things is in residency now, we have didactics Monday through Friday, and when we're on wards, which is when we're mainly in the hospital, it starts at 11 until 1, and when we're not on wards, it's from 12 till 1. And somehow, despite being told during orientation my first year that we needed to log those hours whenever we were in lecture, I still forget it to this day. And one of the other reasons that I got evaluated for ADHD was because I ended up with a bunch of administrative professionalism issues because I wouldn't end up logging the hours despite the fact that I would end up going to them, so it would look like I wasn't actually there, despite the fact that our program director used to take pictures and he would see me there. So then it's like, well, what are you doing if you're like there, but you're not actually documenting that you're there. So definitely got in trouble a lot for that. But yeah. That's all for part 1 of the inattentive symptoms. Come back for part 2 to see the hyperactivity, impulsivity symptoms. But in the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe.